Imagine a young man, only 20 years old, ascending the throne as the King of Macedonia. This was Alexander, who would later be immortalized as Alexander the Great. At that remarkably young age, he did not merely inherit a position of power, he possessed a monumental resolve to expand his territory. Throughout his reign, he managed to conquer nearly the entire world known to the people of his time. Just try to picture it, a young man who seemingly held the entire world within his own two hands. And he was not the kind of king who would simply sit back and watch the progress of a battle from a safe distance. On the contrary, Alexander was always at the front lines, leading his troops directly in his capacity as a general. His massive ambition to subdue the world transformed Macedonia into one of the most formidable powers of that era. His dominion encompassed Greece, North Macedonia, Thrace, Anatolia, Persia, and Egypt, stretching all the way to Central Asia and even further. Throughout his entire life, until the moment death took him, he never suffered a single defeat in any battle he fought. He succeeded in dismantling the Persian Empire, which had long been considered an invincible force that could never fall. He also conquered Egypt and reached the borders of India, eventually becoming known as the King of Kings. The title, Great, was not something handed to him for nothing. He earned it through his own sheer will, through his strength and his staggering achievements. In fact, because of his legendary reputation, rumors began to circulate that he was actually the son of the god Zeus. It was as if he were not entirely an ordinary human, but rather a demigod, an image that illustrated just how magnificent he appeared in the eyes of the world. From his youth, Alexander was educated directly by Aristotle. This tutelage molded him into an individual who was both wise and deeply calculating. He is remembered as a figure who, on one hand, was worshipped as a mighty hero, yet on the other, was viewed as a ruthless and merciless ruler. Even the legendary leaders who came after him, including Roman figures regarded as the greatest military minds in history, remained obsessed with what he had achieved. In this discussion, we will take an in-depth look at just how great Alexander the Great truly was, starting from his childhood, through his journey of conquest, and the wars he commanded. But we won't stop there. We will also explore his personal character to better understand the secrets of one of the most powerful humans in history. Alexander III was born in Pella, the capital of Macedonia, located in the region northwest of Thessaloniki in Greece. He was the son of Philip II, a military leader and politician of extraordinary brilliance. Through his military might and political maneuvering, Philip successfully transformed Macedonia from a rural backwater into a major power with a robust culture and military. Philip harbored a grand ambition. He dreamt of one day invading the east and toppling the Persian Empire. However, at that time, Persia was the world's superpower, superior in fields ranging from science to philosophy. Supported by a massive military, Persia had repeatedly attempted to crush the Greeks, who were known for being stubborn and rebellious. Because of this, the dream of conquering Persia was seen as overly optimistic, if not borderline impossible. From the age of 13 to 16, Alexander was tutored directly by Aristotle, one of the greatest intellectual figures in human history. From this education, he developed a profound interest in philosophy, medicine, politics, the arts, and scientific research. However, as time went on, he evolved beyond his teacher's doctrines, especially the view that non-Greeks should be treated as slaves. This shift in perspective would later assist Alexander in constructing his vast empire. The influence of heroic tales and legendary characters also constantly shaped his mindset, fueling a massive drive for ambition, even though some of those figures were purely fictional. When his father was away, Alexander was once left in charge to lead Macedonia. He used this opportunity to prove that, despite being a teenager, he was destined for greatness. It was here that he gathered an army and successfully defeated the Mede tribe, a part of Thrace living in the southeastern Balkan region. 2 years later, Philip returned, determined to unify Greece under a single rule. He waged war against a coalition of Greek cities led by Thebes and Athens. In that battle, Alexander led the cavalry and successfully annihilated an elite force consisting of 150 pairs of lovers, the sacred band of Thebes. This victory caused his name to become widely recognized among the Macedonian military ranks. After Philip II passed away, there was no clear successor to the throne. However, Alexander, who had already secured the backing of the soldiers, immediately seized power. He promptly executed the Lyncestis princes suspected of being involved in Philip's assassination and eliminated all rivals and factions that opposed him. To solidify his control over Greece, Alexander attended a gathering of Greek city-states that his father had previously summoned. At that meeting, he was elected as the supreme commander to lead the war against Persia. But before he could do that, he had to ensure that Greece remained stable. He subdued rebellious cities, often using military force, and also conducted a campaign against the Thracian tribes in the north. When a rumor surfaced that he had died, the city of Thebes revolted. Many other Greek cities, including Athens, were inclined to support the uprising. Hearing this, Alexander forced his troops into a rapid march, covering about 386 kilometers in just 2 weeks until they reached the gates of Thebes. He issued an ultimatum to surrender, but it was rejected. In retaliation, Alexander destroyed the city, burning it to the ground. About 6,000 people were killed, and the rest were sold into slavery. This event struck terror into the other Greek cities, which immediately submitted. Athens chose to surrender, and Alexander showed them leniency. Yet, within himself, there was a conflict. He wanted to be recognized through genuine respect, not just through fear. Once he had secured Greece and solidified his position as leader, Alexander finally turned his focus toward his primary target, the Persian Empire. By comparison, the power of Macedonia and Greece looked tiny in the face of a Persia that was so massive and well established. However, Alexander had absolute confidence that his troops were far better trained, more disciplined, and equipped with superior weaponry. He believed that his strategies and tactics were capable of defeating a Persian force that was much larger in number. From the very start of his reign, the plan for an expedition to Persia was firmly rooted in his mind. He grew up with that ambition, while also realizing that Persian wealth was desperately needed to maintain the army inherited from his father, Philip II, and to pay off the kingdom's massive debts. Alexander was also inspired by the tale of the 10,000 who successfully penetrated Persian territory and returned safely. Furthermore, the success of Agesilaus of Sparta in fighting against Persia served as proof that the empire was not an impossible thing to defeat. Additionally, Alexander possessed a core strength in the form of a highly trained cavalry, led directly by him as a capable commander. All these factors bolstered his conviction that Persia, despite its size, was not an invincible power. Alexander then moved toward Persian territory with approximately 32,000 troops. His movements were swift and unpredictable, leaving the Persians unprepared for the assault. Alexander's initial strike was so powerful that it forced the Persian forces to retreat. His bravery in leading from the front lines was once again clearly visible. His belief that the quality of troops could overcome quantity was proven correct. At that time, the Persian forces tended to be weakened by having lived in luxury for too long without any major threats. Their discipline had slipped, and their cavalry was not as strong as it once was. In contrast, Alexander's army consisted of a complete combination: archers, javelin throwers, infantry, and heavy cavalry. With his mastery of combined arms tactics, he was able to shatter the Persian army. In one of the great battles, the Persian king, Darius III, was forced to flee the battlefield with whatever remained of the troops he had hastily gathered. From this point on, the region of Asia Minor fell into Alexander's hands. Darius, feeling increasingly cornered, retreated to Babylon and turned it into his center of defense. There, he gathered a massive army consisting of various nations within his empire, including Persians, Medes, and mercenaries. Impatient to wait, Darius decided to face Alexander directly. However, once again, the Macedonian forces managed to break through the Persian defensive lines. Seeing the tide turn against him, Darius fled once more. In his hurried escape, he even left his family behind. His mother felt so deeply ashamed that she publicly disowned Darius and instead acknowledged Alexander as her own son. This event became an important symbol that helped Alexander solidify his rule over Persia. In one particularly difficult siege, a city refused to surrender and held Alexander's forces at bay for 7 months. After successfully conquering it, Alexander, furious over the length of their resistance, permitted a massive massacre of about 30,000 inhabitants. This is where Alexander's cruel side became increasingly apparent. He may have been a great leader, but that didn't always mean he was a good person. Afterward, he continued his journey to Egypt. There, he was welcomed and even crowned as pharaoh, replacing Persian rule. Meanwhile, Darius tried several times to offer peace and requested that his family be returned. However, all these offers were rejected by Alexander. Finally, the decisive battle took place. Two great powers faced off once again in a fierce struggle that would determine the fate of Persia. Each side realized that this was the final fight that would decide everything. Ultimately, Alexander's forces were again victorious. And once more, Darius fled. He retreated to Ecbatana. Alexander pursued him with a fast-moving force, but before he could capture him, Darius was killed by his own people who considered him a coward. Nonetheless, Alexander was not satisfied. He searched for and found the person responsible for the murder, then sentenced him to death. This action showed that Alexander held certain principles in respecting his enemies. When he found Darius's body, he gave him a proper royal funeral. With the death of Darius, Alexander officially claimed the throne of Persia. The empire that had been a threat to Greece for centuries was now under his control. To maintain this power, Alexander gave the Persian regions the freedom to govern themselves, as long as they remained loyal to him. He did not force changes in culture or religion. In fact, he even adopted many Persian customs. This made him popular among the Persian people, but it caused dissatisfaction among his Macedonian troops. In one incident, a general and close friend insulted this policy while in a drunken state. In a fit of rage, Alexander killed him, an act that further revealed his dark side. Tensions between him and the Macedonian army continued to rise. However, Alexander believed that further conquest could stabilize the situation while also satisfying his ambition. He then continued his expansion into India. There, he was greeted by the ruler Taxiles, who presented him with gifts of elephants, troops, and support as a sign of respect. Taxiles hoped to ally with Alexander to fight his enemy, King Porus. The battle took place at the Jhelum River. Alexander and his allies succeeded in defeating Porus. However, impressed by Porus's courage, Alexander did not kill him. Instead, he appointed him as an ally. Following this victory, Alexander continued moving east, facing various kingdoms. Despite facing strong resistance, nothing could stop him. He remained undefeated. But eventually, trouble arose not from an enemy, but from within. His troops were beginning to suffer from physical and mental exhaustion due to the long journey and harsh environmental conditions. They refused to travel any further, specifically refusing to cross the Ganges River. They felt they had reached the absolute limit of their capabilities. Alexander, who understood their condition, finally decided to retreat and not proceed with the expedition any further east. This decision marked the end of his military campaign in India. After returning from his long expedition, Alexander began focusing on consolidating the empire he had built with so much effort. He continued to issue various policies to strengthen his control over that vast territory. However, the greater his power grew, the greater the problems he had to face. Many of the generals and governors he appointed ended up causing new issues. Furthermore, the cultural differences between the Macedonians and the Persians created significant internal tension. This conflict became a major challenge in his efforts to unify the empire. Just as Alexander felt that the situation was starting to stabilize and the unification between Macedonia and Persia was beginning to take shape, he traveled to Babylon. Previously, he had held a grand celebration in Ecbatana. But in the middle of that journey, he suffered a massive loss. His closest companion, Accession, passed away due to illness. This loss dealt a very heavy emotional blow to him. From that point on, his physical condition never truly recovered. Shortly after arriving in Babylon, Alexander fell ill. After about 10 days in a steadily worsening condition, he finally died at the age of 33. During his life, he had ruled for approximately 12 years and 8 months. One of Alexander's biggest weaknesses was that he did not prepare a clear successor to take his place. Consequently, after his death, a power vacuum occurred. His generals then appointed two figures as kings, Philip II's son, who had mental limitations, and Alexander's son by Roxana, who was born after his death. After various negotiations, the empire's territory was divided into satrapies among the generals. However, the empire could not survive as a single entity. Eventually, both kings were murdered. The regions that were previously under Alexander's rule turned into independent kingdoms. His generals began appointing themselves as kings. Conflict was inevitable. They went to war with one another to fight for supreme power. One thing became clear: all this time, what had truly held the empire together was not a system, but the figure of Alexander himself. His strong personality, his unstoppable ambition, and his ability to lead were the primary factors that kept the empire intact. As a general, Alexander is recognized as one of the best in all of history. He possessed an extraordinary ability to combine various types of troops, from infantry and archers to cavalry, into one effective strategy. He was also very flexible in his thinking, capable of adjusting his tactics to deal with different types of enemies. Whether facing nomadic tribes like the Shaka, mountain tribes in India, or Porus's army with its war elephants, Alexander was always able to find a way to win. His strategies were not only clever but also creative. He could see opportunities in the heat of battle and exploit them as the deciding factor for victory. Additionally, he was known for relentlessly pursuing a defeated enemy, ensuring a victory that was truly complete. His use of cavalry was so effective that he often didn't need to rely on the infantry to deliver the final blow. Centuries after his death, Alexander's influence is still felt strongly. Great figures ranging from Julius Caesar of Rome to Napoleon Bonaparte of France looked to him as an inspiration and a model for military strategy. However, Alexander's legacy was not limited just to warfare. One of his greatest impacts was the introduction of autocratic governance models and the concept of the divine king, inspired by Persian traditions, to the Western world. This shifted the political paradigm and later provided a blueprint for the centralized power of the Roman emperors. Furthermore, his reign became a pivotal point in the history of Europe and Asia. His expeditions, along with his interest in science, helped drive developments in geography and natural sciences. His conquests also caused a shift in the center of civilization toward the east and opened a new era known as the Hellenistic Age. Greek culture spread widely across various regions through large-scale colonization in the Middle East. This created a more connected world, stretching from Gibraltar to the Punjab region. Koine Greek became the connecting language that facilitated trade and social interaction. Alexander also founded many cities named after himself, reinforcing his influence on culture and civilization. He provided a common language to the territories he ruled, so that communication and trade became much more efficient. Although his motivations were often driven by ambition, glory, and a desire to be remembered, the result of his actions created a more integrated world. A world that allowed for intercultural interaction on a scale that had never happened before. Alexander the Great was a figure who redrew the map of the world through his conquests. He inspired subsequent generations with his grand ambition and unshakable resolve. He became one of the most influential figures in human history, and his impact is still felt to this day. He is a symbol of extraordinary leadership and boundless ambition. However, like many other great figures, he was also full of contradictions. Some people see him as a hero who unified the world. Others see him as a cruel conqueror who spilled much blood. But regardless of all that, there is one thing that cannot be denied: Alexander was indeed great. That title was not given to him for free. He carved it himself, through courage, strategy, and a lifetime of victory without a single defeat.